Hello and welcome. My name is Jason and I'm the owner and founder of Reforming Trauma Coaching and Counseling. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because it's going to be about me talking about why I decided to get into this life coaching and counseling business. I've had a lot of people ask me the reasons behind it. So this video is hopefully going to explain some of those reasons. I guess for me, I've been through my own trauma. I was raised in a dysfunctional family. I was raised by abusive and neglectful parents. I've had my own alcohol issues. I've had my own drug issues. I've displayed a lot of toxic and narcissistic behaviors when I was a lot younger. Meaning between probably about 25-ish up until about 25, 30-ish. That's kind of when I started getting my life together. I haven't had any professional therapy. I did try. It didn't work for me. I kind of felt that the focus was more on the labels, those psychiatric labels and those disorders. And it didn't really kind of fit with who I am as a person, right? I don't like being thrown into boxes. I don't like being limited. That's just kind of my personality in general. If someone tries to put me into a box, my natural instinct is to escape that box. So I found therapy in that sense. Maybe I didn't find the right therapist, but I didn't find it very useful. And I'd also started in 2009. I originally started a nursing degree. One of the first units of that nursing degree was a introduction to psychology. So I started learning a little bit about psychology, and this is interesting. And I kind of went from there, I guess. I think the biggest thing for me in terms of changing my outlook on everything was trying to self-diagnose myself. So I'd read through all these different psychiatric labels and I'll say, hey, I'm bipolar. Hey, I'm borderline. Hey, I'm narcissistic. Hey, I've probably got autism. And I was looking at all these things and I was kind of getting wrapped up in all these labels. And it gave me knowledge, but it didn't help me to improve, if that makes sense. And I'm a very, very logical person. And I kind of got to the point mentally where I was like, well, either I'm so special and unique that I'm all of these disorders, like I have all of these, or there's something wrong here. And by looking at it in terms of me not being that special and unique, that I'm borderline, I'm narcissistic, I'm this, I'm that, and everything else, then I kind of shifted away to, well, maybe these labels are not really as important, and maybe I should be focusing on the symptoms that I'm experiencing, right? As soon as I made that mental and cognitive shift, I was able to start improving things. I guess one of the biggest things that I'd learned in psychology up until that point, and it was kind of the predominant theory that was in my mind at the time, was about brain plasticity. So I always thought that my brain was broken. I didn't think that it could be fixed. And then when I started reading about brain plasticity, then it started to give me a sense of hope. And it allowed me to understand that if I could break the conditioning effects of my behaviors, then I could retrain my brain to respond in different ways. That was really kind of that mental mind shift that really led to big improvements. So I could look at myself, for example, being manipulative towards someone and understanding that that was kind of my brain's default setting. But I understood that if I started changing that by not engaging in those kind of behaviors, I could retrain my brain to not be manipulative, right? So that was kind of a good step forward for me. I think another quite critical mental shift for me was when I started studying a bit of psychology when I was doing that nursing degree, sorry. It kind of allowed me to understand that I wasn't alone. So I always kind of have the perception that I was so misunderstood. Nobody could ever understand my story. My situation was so unique and so unconventional that I could never reveal it to anyone because they'll never understand it. So one of the values of studying psychology was it allowed me to understand that I could be understood by a psychologist. So regardless of how dysfunctional my life was, regardless of everything that I've been through, I made perfect sense to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. That kind of opened me up to the idea that maybe other people could understand me too. So I didn't feel as isolated anymore. And again, that mental shift, along with that mental shift of understanding that my brain wasn't broken, really led to some of these improvements for me. that kind of is what led me into life coaching and counseling. It kind of took me a while to get to this point. Sorry for that. But essentially, I wanted to be able to empower other people to make improvements in their life in unconventional ways, if that makes sense. So the conventional road is to see a psychiatrist or see a psychologist, to have a label, to complete assessments and things like that. And yes, I do use some of those assessment tools now, but they're not in that self-limiting kind of way. I also want to provide a unique perspective. So it's one thing to say, well, I understand everything that you're going through from a textbook perspective, but the advantage of my situation is that I've also got that lived experience. So when someone comes to me and they talk about anxiety or they talk about depression, yes, I understand it from the clinical textbook perspective, but also understand it from my own perspective of when I used to lay in bed all the time, of when I didn't have the motivation to do things or to achieve goals. So that's kind of why I jumped into all of this, to provide an alternative to therapists and psychologists who some people may not gravitate to because of their own personality dispositions, like me, right? So that's kind of the motivation behind all that. I also kind of looked at my situation after I started healing and all those sorts of things, and I'm like, well, here I am now. What have I got? And how can I monetize that in a sense? So I really, really like everything that I do. It provides me with a lot of internal satisfaction and a lot of internal motivation. But to be sustainable, I also need that external satisfaction, that external reward. That's kind of why I monetize what I do. And when I say I monetize, I don't monetize in the greedy sense. My fees are very, very low, but I have to attach something external to it, again, to keep this kind of passion going for me. Otherwise, I'll kind of burn out. You can't give everything away for free. That's not very healthy. So for me to be able to sustain this, I need to have both that internal and external motivation attached. So there we go. Hopefully that answers a few questions. I'm open to people asking me different questions. If you want to kind of know what my paranoid phase was like when I went through a bit of paranoia back then, if you want to understand what it was like when I had addictions, if you want to understand what it was like when my life was consumed by rage, not anger, but rage, then definitely let me know. I'm happy to answer some questions. And then hopefully that provides you with some insights into your own behaviors and into your own thoughts and your own feelings, which leads you onto the path of recovery as well. There you go. Thank you.